I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Join me every Sunday between 3 and 4 on Radio Modiin as we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond. Always dancing in the studio. I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond right here on Radio Modiin, where we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond our borders. Now, last week I teased you. I said that we would have a new look studio. Today, our super new look studio is ready. So, kol hakavod to Pe'er, to Amiyad, to everybody behind the scenes who made this happen. And I don't have to twiddle any knobs, which is always safe. So on today's show, we have a girl power show. Unfortunately, our one guest wasn't able to make it today. No worries. We'll hopefully chat to him next week. That's Dr. Ephraim Zuoff, Chief Nazi Hunter. Always a fascinating conversation. But today, and I'm so thrilled to have her in studio, I have Rubin Seligson, who has written a phenomenal book all about inclusion. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. And coming up a little bit later in the show, our entertainment queen. We missed her last week, but Pe'er and I had to settle for whiskey, lots of it. We have Yael Kinar. She is our queen of entertainment. We're going to be talking Madonna. We're going to be talking Gal Gadot. And we're going to be talking about what has happened to my favorite reality TV couple, Mauricio Umansky and Carl Richards. Say it isn't so, guys, but she's going to have all the details. And just a reminder that if you want to advertise your business, your services right here on Radio Modiin, because our audience is growing, this is the only English show, but we do have one in Spanish and, of course, the rest all in Hebrew. All you have to do is contact us via our website at www.radiomodiin.co.il. And if you want to chat to me, Rolene Marks, in studio, or have a question for my guests, all you have to do is WhatsApp me at 052-582-9090. No cute cat videos, please, while I'm on air. But afterwards, you're certainly welcome. But I'm delighted to welcome to the show today, Rubin Seligson, author of this gorgeous book, The Mysterious Missing Book. Now, this is a very, very special book, Rebecca. It's not like ordinary other books because it also comes with important messages and an important history. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. First, just thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. So the history behind the book is as follows. I have an 8-year-old with cerebral palsy with CP, and I happen to be an early childhood educator and a literacy specialist. And after he was born, I was a little bit unable to return back to my normal work, which was teaching. And a lot of people had always said to me, you should go into writing. You should write, you should write, you should write. And I've always written. I've never done it professionally, but it was always something of a habit of mine. And reading was a habit of mine. And critiquing books as a literacy specialist is something I love to do. And so when my son was born, I was always very critical of the children's books that came into my house. Very, very critical. And there was very little representation out there of kids with special needs, with disabilities, in wheelchairs that weren't like fun books. There were a lot of educational books out there. There are a lot of books that teach about disabilities, that teach about the importance of differences and how we're all different and we're all the same. But there were very few children's entertainment books that were just fun for kids to read that included kids with disabilities. And for me, the topic of interest was very important. Like, I want kids to be interested in the books that they're reading. And so when everyone said to me, you should write a book, you should write a book, I think a lot of people sort of thought that I would write a book for adults on like my experiences of raising a child with a disability, raising a child with a disability in a foreign country and all the things that come along with that. But I decided to turn my expertise elsewhere to where my real expertise actually lied, which was children's books.
And of course, as a child, you want to open a book and see yourself represented.
Exactly. There was like I said at first, there was very little representation of him. And so I had written this book really for him for two reasons. One, for him to open a book, exactly what you said, to open a book and see himself in the book. And two, because I wanted to kind of open up the world of disabilities to other children. I wanted my son to go to shul on Shabbat, to go to Tfilat Eladim, and for not all the kids to he goes in his electric wheelchair. It's Shabbat. He drives an electric wheelchair. Some kids question it, understandably. But I wanted them to be open to this world, not necessarily through him, because I don't everyone who knows us knows that, like I said, that we're an open book. We're happy to answer any questions about his wheelchair. He knows about his CP. He knows about what causes it. He can tell you all about it, and we all talk about it. But I wanted kids to kind of come at him with a sort of basic understanding and a basic, an eye-opening moment kind of what disability is. And so that way, the first time they see him or have an interaction with him, they're not staring, they're not pointing, they're not, what is that? What is that? What is that? I want other kids to see my son and be like, oh, that's that wheelchair. I know what that is. And kind of come at him with a little bit more of acceptance than questioning and with the distance. So I came at this from a purely selfish point. I had done this really for my son. This was 100% for him. And of course, when you do something for one person, you hope to be able to help other kids who are in similar situations as well, other kids with disabilities. And the hope was for this book to become, like I said, not an educational tool in terms of the practicalities of teaching about disability. In fact, the story is just a fun story where the main character is a superhero with a disability, but it doesn't teach about disabilities. It doesn't teach about what a wheelchair is. It doesn't teach about what CP is. It's just a fun book that kids will open up and want to read. And when kids will want to read it, they'll gain more of a natural understanding of it through the exposure and through the interest. And so that's where that came from.
I mean, it's amazing because you've created two wonderful characters, Incredi Wheels and Triple S. And I'm just going to read to you a little bit from the book. It says, my hero name is Incredi Wheels. I have an awesome cape, mask, and costume, just like all the other superheroes. I also have a cool utility bag that has lots of tools to help on super missions. My little sister is also a superhero. She's my sidekick. Her real name is Nina, but her superhero name is Super Sidekick Sister, or Triple S for short. I mean, that is so cool.
They're fun. They're both modeled after my kids. So the main character, Z, my son's name is Esri. And my daughter, when she was a baby, couldn't say his full name, so she would call him as Z. So we got Z for Z. And Nina, my daughter's name is Noah. I wanted an N name, and Noah felt a little bit I wanted a name that was a little bit more global. I felt like Noah's a very Israeli name, and while I love that name, I felt like if I was reaching out to more of a global crowd, I needed a name that would fit a little bit more globally. So we took her and made Nina.
So take us through the plot of this book. It's called The Mysterious Missing Book. So what happens? Why is Incredi Wheels called to superhero action?
So his call to action, him and his sister Zia and Nina are playing together in the park when they hear a friend call for help. And they go over and they see that their friend Zoe, who is a blind character, but the plot line doesn't tell us that she's blind, but we see it through the illustration. She uses a white cane. Her book has Braille. Everything is implied. Nothing is specifically stated. So we hear Zoe call for help, and somebody stole Zoe's book, and we need help. The park is huge. They need help searching the park in order to find the missing book. So nobody in the story is helpless. Everybody takes part in helping, and everyone has their own superheroes and everyone has their own superpowers in order to help themselves and to help each other. And nobody, like I said, nobody's helpless. No one's standing on the sidelines. Yes, it starts off that everybody asks for help, but Zoe discovers her own superpowers and assists in the search as well. And eventually they find that there was a little sneaky cat who stole the book from her lap and took it up a tree.
Cats, you just can't trust them. And I'm a cat.
You're mad at cat videos.
And I am totally a mommy of cats. So each child in this book that has special needs has some kind of hero quality.
Correct. Nobody, like I said, nobody's helpless. Everybody takes action. Everybody is able to help themselves. Nobody's an object of pity. Nobody's an object of helplessness.
I just love that. Now, explain to many of our listeners who might not know, what is cerebral palsy?
So cerebral palsy is what happens when your brain basically lacks oxygen for a certain amount of time. And everybody has CP in a completely different way. It depends on what area of the brain was deprived of oxygen. And it presents itself in like a billion different ways. You can have CP in one arm. You can have CP in two arms. You can have CP in one leg. You can have CP in two legs. You can have in half of your body on the right side. You can have it on the left side. You can have it in your pinky. You can be you can walk, you can talk, you can be tube fed. There are so many different ways that CP presents itself that there's pretty much no way that two cases are going to be the same. So it's one of the most common childhood physical disabilities. It's not something that, I don't really think it changes. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical authority, so I don't want to speak on things that I don't 100% know of. But it's usually something that's unchanging unless something happens at one point or another. But it's a lifelong childhood into adulthood physical disability that there is no cure for, but can be helped with things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of these different ways to help adapt lives for people who have CP, whether that's using a robot to help them eat independently, whether it's with a wheelchair, whether it's with a walker, whether it's with a spoon that's melted in a certain way to help the angle of them be able to eat a little bit better on their own. We're very grateful for all the therapists in my son's lives who have come up with these mind-bending adaptations for him to help him be as independent as possible. And so, yeah, I'm just going to take a second to shout out a thank you to them.
Absolutely. We're going to take a minute to give the therapists, the caregivers, a huge shout out. I think they're heroes that don't get enough credit for the incredible work.
The SIATs, their aides, their helpers, everyone. Just a huge thank you.
You're listening to Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin with me, Rolene Marks. I'm speaking to Rebecca Rubin Seligson. Rebecca is the author of this incredible children's book, The Mysterious Missing Book, The Adventures of Incrediwheels and Triple S. We're going to take a short music break. On the other side of this, more with my guest, Rebecca.
Good song.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on the streets 'cause she's my companion. I walk through the hills 'cause she knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and she kisses the wind in. And I never worry, now that is a lie. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I Maybe she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. And I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. And I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way.
Classic rock with the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Under the Bridge. A reminder, I'm Rolene Marks. This is Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin. And I just want to take a minute to wish our American listeners a very, very happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day.
I'm such a terrible American.
Well, happy Independence Day. I also just want to take a minute on a more serious note to offer our support behind the brave men and women of the and canines of the IDF currently on a counter-terror mission in the city of Jenin to root out the terrorism for once and for all. We pray for a swift, speedy and successful operation and for you all to come home safe and sound. We proudly stand behind the IDF and all our men and women of our very, very remarkable security forces. But joining me in studio, I think, is a superhero mom herself, is Rebecca Rubin Seligson, the author of the fabulous children's book, The Mysterious Missing Book, The Adventures of Incrediwheels and Triple S. Damn those cats that steal those books. And this is an absolutely delicious book, a must read for any parent because it teaches about inclusion. When we're speaking about inclusion, what do we mean?
I think we mean an unwavering acceptance of anyone who's different.
Mm-hmm.
I think with kids, they have a natural tendency to question things that are different from their norm, whether it be something that looks different, something that sounds different. And I think we want the goal of inclusion to be, regardless of those questions, which are natural, I think we want to foster a complete welcoming and joining in of others who are different, whether it's with a physical disability, a mental disability, an invisible disability, that regardless of what your differences are, you're welcome here and you're accepted here and we're happy to have you and we value your opinion and we value what you have to say.
I think the world is becoming more aware of people's differences and the things that make us so similar. Now let's talk about Israel for a second when it comes to making provisions, when it comes to helping people with special needs. How do we fare in the world in terms of support, like wheelchair friendliness, going that extra mile to make sure that people feel included?
So I think all in all, first, I just want to say that everywhere has work to be done. No country is perfect. No matter whether it's America with ADA laws, whether it's Israel, everywhere there's work that needs to be done, whether that means making sure that there's elevators, making sure that there's curb cuts on the streets in order for wheelchairs to safely get onto the sidewalk, whether that means that there's a ramp to the entrance, where there's where people are physically able to access spaces. I think that's a huge part of it. I think Israel, like I said, everywhere has work to be done, but I'm incredibly grateful to be in Israel, to be experiencing everything that we have to go through to be here, because a few things. The first I want to mention is talking about our wheelchair van, which my son has an electric wheelchair. It's very heavy. We can't fold it up and stick it in the back of a trunk. And because of his level of disability and because of his disability, he is able to get one fully funded by the government. And it was a lot of drama surrounding it. Thank you, Corona.
I think everything
everything in Israel involves red tape. It involves drama, bureaucracy. And I'm very grateful to people who have helped us. We've had some phenomenal people through the wheelchair company, through Be Free. That's who we used our van from. We've had some phenomenal, amazing people. In this world of disability, you end up meeting some of the most special people. But he got it. We didn't have to pay for it. We didn't have to fight for it. We did have to fight. Like I said, thank you, Corona. Kind of messed a whole lot of things up for us, like everybody else. But he got it. And like I said, we didn't have to pay for it. And we ended up paying the difference because basically the way that it works is you send an application, you have a vada, you have a meeting in front of people, and they take all of your circumstances into account and then give you an ishur for a certain kind of van. And the van that we were given an ishur for was it was a small one. And we have another child who we need to be able to take with also. And so we ended up paying out of pocket the difference for a bigger van. So we used their ishur and then split the difference basically in order to get like the next level up. But it was funded for. And if we were not in a state to be able to pay that difference, we would have been able to take that van, and that would have been a godsend. And it was a godsend. It is a godsend. And so for things like that. And then I also want to talk about the amazing, I don't even know how to, I guess the education system for chinuch miyuchad.
I was going to ask you about the education system and how it works and ensuring that children are educated about other kids with special needs.
Well, so I'm gonna backtrack and talk a little bit about the special education system, and then I'll go back to your question about how other kids can be educated. But basically, if once you get diagnosed with a disability, you're able to turn to Bituach Leumi and get disability funding. And once you get disability funding, you're eligible to get into the chinuch miyuchad system. And so for my son, what that meant was that by the age of 1, he was in what's called a ma'on yom shikumi, which is basically a day hab center for kids with disabilities. And it was a 6-day-a-week program. It was here in Rayut in Modiin called Chimes. Amazing. And he had 6 days a week of education, of teaching, PT, OT, speech, animal therapy, gardening therapy, a whole range of extra therapies. And he got this from the age of 1. And he got this for 6 days a week until he was 3, where he moved to a different gan, where he received the same therapies. And he has continued to receive these therapies based on the schools. Right now, he's in a school in Yerushalayim. That's a chinuch miyuchad school. And he's been doing shiluv this past year, which is integration into a regular classroom, because academically he's on grade level, but he needs a lot of help with the PT and the speech and everything. But he's been sitting in on regular classes, and we're actually hoping in September to get him into a class in Modiin in a regular school. So that way he can make friends in the neighborhood. And we used to take my son once a year to a CP clinic in Philadelphia, in the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia called CHOP. They have a world-renowned CP clinic there. And we've been taking him once a year from when he was like 1.5. And every single time they went, they were in complete and utter shock at the level of care that he's been receiving. Because in the States, when you're that young, when you're 1, 2, when you're an infant, you don't get a 6-day-a-week full day care program.
So it was a level of shock in a good way.
It was level of shock in a good way, yes.
This is what we like to hear.
Yes, level of shock in a good way. They said they've never seen that level of care. In the States, if you're lucky, you can get like 3-4 hours like a week, maybe, possibly, depending on like it's a whole production. Everywhere is a production, but what you get out of it isn't exactly the same as what you get here. And we've actually been discharged from the clinic because they're like, we can't give you any more suggestions. Everything that we would recommend for you to do is already being done 10 times over. So like, we can't give you any more advice. So I think that speaks a lot about the level of care that we've been receiving here. And I know that the fight is different, like for him, because his disability is very physical and it's very obvious. And because it's very physical and obvious, like it's easier, I guess, in a way for him to get the care that he needs and to get certain services. I know with different diagnoses, people are fighting harder and fighting more. And I know it's not always so easy based on what your diagnosis is. But in the end, like I said, there's a lot of fighting involved. You do get it. And we're so grateful for that. Now, back to your question of how we can teach others. I think a lot of that comes from parents because kids learn from their parents. Yes, they learn in school. But kids learn a lot more from their parents. Yeah. And parents need to be the role models of their kids when it comes to disabilities. And I have a really funny story, actually, about that. When my son turned, I think it was around 2 years old, and we were getting him a walker from Yad Sarah. And we had lived down the block from one of the elementary schools in the neighborhood. And I had wanted to, my initial goal was to go to Yad Sarah, pick up the walker, bring it home, and have him use it at home. I didn't want him to see it in the car when I picked him up from my own, because I knew that if he saw it in the car, that he would want to walk from our parking lot up the block to the house. And I knew this was totally a discomfort of my own. I wasn't mentally prepared to deal with all the stares and the looks. And I knew that we were going to come home around the same time that school let out, which meant a whole flow of kids and students and parents. And I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared to deal with it. And of course, that was what ended up happening. I didn't have enough time to get it before, and I picked him up from school, and my mom was with me, and he wanted to walk home. And I can't tell him no because of my own personal discomfort. That's not exactly the world's best parenting. So I let him do it, and I swallowed my feelings, and we did it. And it took him about what would normally take a person about 1.5 minutes to walk, took him about 10 minutes to walk up, because it was up a hill and we hadn't set it up properly, but he was determined and he did it. And on this little, it was a little tiny walk home, we probably experienced about every single reaction you can get, which was great because it was a learning opportunity for me of what I need to do. And there was one, I'll name the three main ones. We had one kid who asked, "What is that?" And the parent shooed them away. And now when you shoo a child away, who asks a question like that,
you lose the opportunity.
You lose the opportunity to teach them. You lose the teaching opportunity. And then you also teach them that this disability is now something that's taboo. And it's not something that you can't talk about. It's not something you can ask questions about. And any future questions that this child may have, they're not going to ask because they know that this parent is going to hush them up. So that was one. The second one was a child who asked, "What is that?" And a parent answered and taught them. So that's a walker. It helps this boy walk. Done. Great. Which was a phenomenal teaching moment because now this child has learned something new and it's not something to be scared of. And great, done. They left enlightened and the conversation was over. It wasn't like a whole big what to do. And then we walked past and there was a child who just waved at my son and said hi. And it was like I said, we experienced every level in this 10-minute little walk up the hill. And I think from that experience taught me a lot about what I need to do here in terms of helping parents educate themselves about disabilities, about teaching their kids about disabilities, exposing their kids to disabilities, whether that's through books, TV shows, movies, toys, discussions, just to be there as a facilitator, as a role model. If a child sees their parents like when they're like someone with a disability walking down the street, how does their parent react? How does the child react? And the child will learn from the parent. And I think it's very important that parents be that positive role model. I think schools, their responsibility needs to be, it's hard to put responsibilities on institutions as much as we would love there to be.
And we also can't palm everything off to the schools.
We can't. I think, and I'm dealing with this personally now because we're dealing with getting my son into a school, like I said, in Modiin. And schools here necessarily aren't the most wheelchair accessible. I haven't really grasped the fact our Beit Knesset is in a school and there's no elevator to the second floor. And these are new buildings. It's not like these were buildings that were built 30 years ago before disability laws were brought into effect here, which I'll be honest, I don't know 100% about them, but it kind of blows my mind a little bit how brand new buildings with more than one floor don't have an elevator. Not even for someone with a disability, but if a kid breaks a foot, if a teacher breaks a foot, then they're automatically excluded from whatever it is that's taking place on the second floor. And I felt really bad because we were looking at a school for my son, and it was a school that I really had wanted to send him to, but there's no elevator, and there's parts of the school that are inaccessible to him. And in the end, like, I mean, I don't think it's going to be the right choice for him because he can't get around the building. It's not, it's like one of the most basic needs. So I think, and like I said, this is an institutional thing. It's not necessarily to schools. I'm only bringing up schools because this was our personal experience with it. But I think if you don't allow, if your building is not inclusive, if there's no way for disabled people to enter the buildings, then they won't be represented. They won't be seen. And in order for disabled people to be seen, in order for them to be accepted, they need to be seen. You can't have people who use wheelchairs, who use walkers, stuck inside their house because they can't get into certain places. And then when you don't see people with disabilities, it's because they can't get to where they need to be. And I think that's highly problematic as well. And like I said, that's an institutional problem that needs to be fixed.
You're listening to Modiin and Beyond. I'm Rolene Marks. My guest in studio is Rebecca Rubin Seligson, author of The Mysterious Missing Book, a fabulous book for children teaching all about inclusivity. We're going to take another short music break. And on the other side of that, our closing remarks with Rebecca and, of course, our queen of all things entertainment, Yael Kinar.
המזרח התיכון, אנשים שיגעון, זה החום שעושה אותם ככה. וכאן פתחנו שולחן, מצפון תל אביב עד רמאללה, יואו, איך שבא לי לרקוד, לחזור לעבוד, להרים עם כולם כל הלילה. ואש זה ממש מתבקש, תפסיקי לחשוב על זה הלאה, בוא. כל בית ישראל חזק מתפלל, זה כתוב וזה בא מלמעלה. וכאן האזרח הקטן מחכה למשיח בלילה. מחכים שיבוא, שיביא לנו אור, כמו סיפור תנכי שסיפרתי לבני הבכור. מחפשים, אנשים, רק ביחד נצליח להיות חזקים. אנשים שיגעון, זה הלחץ עושה אותם ככה. אז בוא, רגע לפה נדבר על דברים ששכחת. איך יפה המדבר, אפילו שקר, שמיים פתוחים של הלילה. איך יפה הצפון ועד החרמון, לא צריך סקי באיטליה. כמה בא לי איטליה, כמה בא לי צרפת או אפילו אנטליה. לעלות על מטוס לכמה שעות, ואז יאללה הביתה פה. כל בית ישראל חזק מתפלל, זה כתוב וזה בא מלמעלה. למעלה, וכאן האזרח הקטן מחכה למשיח בלילה. מחכים שיבוא, שיביא לנו אור, כמו סיפור תנכי שסיפרתי לבני הבכור. מחפשים, אנשים, רק ביחד נצליח להיות חזקים. והבידוד שסוגר אותי, והלחץ גומר אותי, 3 ילדים בלימוד מרחוק, זה לא צחוק, זה אוכל אותי. איך בא לי איטליה, כמה בא לי צרפת, סנטרופאו, בריטניה, גרמניה, הונגריה, יפן, תעשי לי טובה רק לא צ'יינה, נעוף מסביב לעולם והביתה.
רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים.
שלטק מודיעין הוא מתחם עבודה שיתופי ליזמים וחברות. בשלטק תמצאו עמדות עבודה אישיות, משרדים סגורים, חדרי ישיבות מרווחים, מרחבי הדרכה משודרגים. בקיצור, כל מה שעסק בצמיחה צריך. שלטק, עסקים שגדלים יחד.
טרייד סטיישן, אפליקציית המסחר זוכת הפרסים. לסחור רק עם הטוב ביותר. אליט פלטפורמס, המקבצה הפיננסית שלכם.
תקועים עם רשת איטית במשרד ובבית, או שאין מספיק קליטה ברשת האלחוטית? מפחדים שאין לכם הגנה מספיקה לבית והעסק שלכם? שואלים את עצמכם, למה החשמל נופל לי כל הזמן? פיסיקו מחשבים, חשמל ותקשורת, היא הפתרון האולטימטיבי לעסק ולבית שלכם. עם ניסיון של 22 שנה בתחום המתח הנמוך והגבוה, נותנים לכם מענה בכל הקשור לכל עבודות החשמל בבית ובעסק שלכם. פתרונות אבטחה מתקדמות, מצלמות אבטחה, הדקות, אינטרנט ובקרות כניסה. הקמה ושדרוג רשת המחשבים והאינטרנט שלכם בעסק ובבית. התקשרו עוד היום ל-05-25-75-75-81. פיסיקו מחשבים, פתרונות משרדיים במקום אחד. תנו לניסיון לדבר.
רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים. רדיו מודיעין, התושבים מדברים.
Welcome back to Modiin and Beyond with me, Rolene Marks, my guest in studio, Rebecca Rubin, Seligson. We're closing out our interview. You were telling me during the music break that about your favorite thing about putting this book together.
So yeah, my favorite, I mean, of course, with all the writing and the lessons, that goes without saying, but my favorite thing about putting this book together was the fact that everyone who was involved in putting this book together, myself, the illustrator, Bridget Malloy, and the the book designer, Travis Peterson, we all live in different parts of the world. Travis lives in Norway, Bridget lives in Wisconsin, I live here in Israel. And this whole book was put together over Instagram and emails. There was not a single face-to-face, no Zoom, no nothing. Everybody just worked so seamlessly together and everyone was just phenomenal. And I think it's the coolest thing on the planet how you have people, 3 people from all over the world come together to put something like this together. And it was such a mind-blowing thing for me. And I absolutely love it. And just got to give them a huge thank you on their amazing work that they did on this. And it would not be where it is without them.
How do we get our paws on a copy of the book?
You can get your paws on it you could get it on Amazon. It was on Book Depository until it closed. You can get it if you live in Israel and you want to buy it locally without having to deal with Amazon. You can go onto my website, weillustratedtales.com. And there's a Google form where you can fill it out and I'll ship it to you directly. So that way you don't have to deal with Amazon shipping, waiting, stuff like that. But it's available globally online. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Target, Walmart. It's in the UK. It's in Australia. It's in Tokyo. It's everywhere online, thankfully. So if you just Google the title and look for where you're locally best able to buy it. And like I said, if you're in Israel, you can reach out to me directly through my website and I can ship you a copy straight from here.
Thank you to Rebecca Rubin Seligson, who's going to stay in studio while we speak to our next guest. She is the queen of all things entertainment. I missed her so much last week and had to settle. I had to settle Yael for so much whiskey because you weren't here, but you're back with a vengeance. Happy 4th of July, girl. I see you've got your ribbon in your hair. We love a good 4th of July celebration.
And we must pause and acknowledge the great land which provides us with the majority of our content, and we are forever grateful and wish America excellent celebrities and lots of good things.
Okay, so we have so much to cover, including the most heartbreaking story. I mean, ladies of Beverly Hills, there is now a single, hot, wealthy Jewish man on the loose. Now we're going to get to him a little later, but first let's talk about Madonna. Huge Madonna news over the weekend.
This is true. I was having prayer circles for the Refuah Shlema of Madonna Louise Chacon last week, who
we have a little bit of a Zoom freeze. But prayer circles, refuah shlema to what does she call herself? Esther. She had some.
Her name is Esther.
There we go. You're back.
Yes. So Madonna gave us a scare last week. She may have had a urinary tract infection. We're not sure, but something became a bacterial infection, sepsis. She was found unresponsive by her children. Rushed to a Manhattan ICU where she received excellent care. And she'd been pushing herself very much. She was going on a world tour, which was supposed to start on July 15th and has now been postponed. And you know what? It's not easy out there. And it's very taxing physical work on stage and all extensive travel. And she has to compete with the Taylor Swifts and Beyoncé's and their world tours and wanting to remain relevant and strong and perform. And I don't know, sometimes one pushes oneself too hard. I do hope that she's able to retain the tour, change the dates, do something, but get back. She's been released. She's home. She's recovering. But she gave us a little bit of a scare there.
Don't do that again, Madonna. Really?
Well, we're not ready. 64 and kicking.
64, a lot of filler. We have spoken about that at length. But Madonna, just take it easy. I mean, come on, Yael, some chicken soup. I mean, she is honorary Kabbalistic Esther.
Absolutely. I'm sure our national Tehillim was helpful.
There you go. If you want to be part of the Madonna Refuah Shlema circle, our queen of entertainment, Yael Kinar, has got you covered. But now let's talk about, she's not just a queen, she's also a Wonder Woman, getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
our Gal Gadot, representing, I believe, the first Israeli. I won't rain on your parade because I know you are all positivity there, Rolene, and I don't want to be negative Nancy. I'll only say the only thing that mildly irked me was the faux surprise of it all, where there was articles about, oh my goodness, Gal Gadot found out in the most random way from the Israeli press, who asked her husband. She had no idea. Meanwhile, it's a very lengthy application process to get a star, and it costs $75,000, and you need like nominations and petitions and a lot of paperwork. So she wasn't surprised, but we are supportive, and I'm sure the moment itself will be lovely, and they usually get to invite guests and have a little speech, and whoever finds themselves in LA can walk by and find her star and have a moment of national pride.
It's okay, Gal. If you want to be surprised, faux surprised, we are all behind you. We fully support your right to be faux surprised. I mean, to me, it's just like, you know, some people when there are headlines that their new Hollywood careers are flopping and their marriage is on the rock. All of a sudden are photographed by Backgrid looking, you know, supremely happy. You know who I'm talking about, but we're not going to go any further. But, you know, that's that whole like, quelle surprise. Who, me? A star? You shouldn't have. But now from a queen to a Wonder Woman and back to a queen who's also been a prime minister. I love her. This woman can do no wrong in my eyes.
Are we discussing Helen Mirren's arrival to Israel for the premiere of Golda at the Jerusalem Film Festival? Could we be?
Could we be? And you know we're going to stalk her.
Oh, she's here. Where is she staying? I don't know. Will it be the King David? I don't know.
Gotta
Leah
follow her
Schreiber will be
Instagram.
here, the Dardenne brothers. And she's gracing us with her presence for the premiere of the film Golda as part of the Jerusalem Film Festival. I'm very happy to be on the personal welcoming committee. I know, Rolene, you would happily join me.
Absolutely.
And surprisingly, Oliver Stone has decided to join, even though he hasn't always been a big fan of us. But we are very happy when the stars grace us, and I hope that we'll have some spottings in the shook of Ms. Dame Helen Mirren.
I mean, she's a great love and a great champion of Israel. She spent time on a kibbutz in her youth. She's been very vocal about being against BDS and supporting Israel. Now, you know that I took it very personally that Rob Lowe did not give us advance warning or advance notice of his trip to Israel. I had to find out by mistake on Instagram with a picture of him at the Kotel in a very fetching kippah. Dame Helen Mirren, we thank you for advance notice that you are heading to our shores, are in our shores, are waiting for Yael and I to come and welcome you, because one queen...
May I suggest we randomly wander all the chic and fabulous locations between July 12th and 14th and see what we find?
I'm so here for that, because somebody who has played my favorite queen, the queen, should meet the queen of entertainment, you.
Ooh, I like that. Absolutely. And she's elegant and fabulous. And recently she had a blue streak in her hair in Cannes, which I'm sure we won't have here. But 77, talented, elegant, well-spoken. We are Team Mirren.
Hashtag Team Mirren. So you heard it here first. If you want the big goods on the Queen, who's playing a prime minister, endorsed by a Queen and supported by a radio host, that would be hashtag Queen Mirren. But now for the news that really disturbed me first thing in the morning when I got it from you. Couldn't believe it. I had to take a moment. I've loved them. Everybody's been rooting for them. Did the psychic at the dinner party from hell have it right all those years ago? If you are a fan of pop culture slash reality TV / Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, you know what I'm talking about. Take it away, Yael.
And I do indeed. So we are discussing the separation of one Kyle Richards from one Mauricio Umansky, who really are the mommy and daddy happily ever after of reality TV. He's always voted #1 hottest house husband and has been this sort of solid, supportive husband and father. So Kyle Richards was a child actor. She was in the Halloween movies, and she comes from an acting family. Her sister Kim Richards and her other sister who's Kathy Hilton. She married a Hilton. She's mother to Paris Hilton. There's a lot of celebrity there. They're in Beverly Hills, and she joined the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Was always sort of a favorite of the cast, not particularly scandalous.
Yeah, she's like an OG.
She is an OG, and she keeps getting better and better looking, as they all do magically from season 1 to season 14. They're like, who looks this much hotter in 15 years? But money helps.
And so does the same pick.
And fillers and what else. But she's a dedicated mother. She's discussed having anxiety in the past with filming and not liking the conflicts. She's had family turmoil with her sisters, speaking terms, not on speaking terms. The show hasn't always been helpful, but in terms of the marriage, that was one thing we thought we had. So they've been together. They've been married for 27 years, which in Hollywood and in the world is a very, very long time. I give them credit for that. It couldn't have been easy. And their careers have both developed so much because Mauricio, who is, as you said, delightful and born and raised in Mexico, Jewish. Kyle converted when she married him. They have Shabbat dinner.
Oh, we have a freeze again, but I'm just very concerned now for the level of competition now in Beverly Hills, because here you have this real estate mogul, Mauricio Umansky. He's extremely good looking. He's very wealthy. He's lovely to boot. You just heard from Yael. He's consistently voted hottest house husband. And now he's single. I mean, I'm concerned for him because there is going to be a beeline of single women who are heading in the direction of Mauricio. He may not be safe, Yael. He may need us.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I believe there'll be a long line of volunteers to support him in this difficult time. I will clarify, because we like to fact check, they are not divorced. They're currently separated. They perhaps are working things out. Unclear. She has come out with a statement saying, yes, it has been their hardest year of their marriage, but they're working, they're trying. They do have 4 beautiful children together and dogs and homes, and they were robbed recently, but we wish them the best. 27 years is not nothing, and I don't think it was considered a failed marriage after all this time. And yeah, they're both highly attractive, which helps in life, and are wealthy and successful. But we were hoping that they would live happily ever after.
But now there is another element to this. There are rumors that Kyle, now to me, this is just reality TV cliche type, that she has been seeing a female country singer called Morgan Wade. Now, as an avid consumer of rubbish reality TV, which I love, don't judge me, I see this as a trend now. Some or other housewife / selling sunset real estate agent has found her way to the Sapphic sisterhood.
It's true. It's sort of been a recurring narrative more recently, with Bronwyn from the Real Housewives leaving her husband and 7 children for a woman. There's Taylor Armstrong, who in her season now of the Real Housewives of Orange County, saying she's bisexual. She used to have relationships with women. It's all good. It's 2023. You roll how you roll. You love who you love. Specifically with Kyle, I think this is a rumor. I don't believe that the reason for the end of her 27-year marriage with Mauricio is this country singer. But the press is looking for tidbits, and they photographed 2 women standing closely together and have declared it a love affair.
Shock.
I disagree.
Horror. Now, everybody, for the record, I am very happily married. I love my husband, but Mauricio, I know loads of single ladies who might be willing to bring you a cheesecake or a casserole. Call me. I know one. I'm looking at her right now. I think you would be fabulous. Mauricio. And that's going to be our show today. A huge thank you to our queen of entertainment, decked out in her 4th of July best, Yael Kinar. A massive thank you to my amazing guest in studio, Rebecca Rubin, Seligson, author of The Mysterious Missing Book, a book that you need to get your children to teach them about inclusion. Also behind the scenes, making it run as flawlessly as possible, and that I behave well, is Per Attia. A huge wave to him behind the scenes. You can't see him, only we can. And yes, he does exist. He's not my invisible friend. And a big thank you to you, our listeners. Join me again next Tuesday for another edition of Modiin and Beyond, right here on Radio Modiin with me, Rolene Marks. Hooly dooly!
There's a new wind blowing like I've never known. I'm breathing deeper than I've ever done, and it sure feels good to finally feel the way I do. Now I wanna love somebody like you. And I'm letting go of all my lonely yesterdays. I've forgiven myself for the mistakes I've made. Now there's just one thing, the only thing I wanna do. I wanna love somebody like you. Yeah, I wanna feel the sunshine shining down on me and you. When you put your arms around me, you let me know there's nothing in this world I can't do. I used to run in circles, going nowhere fast. I take one step forward and 2 steps back. I couldn't walk a straight line, even if I wanted to. I wanna love somebody like you. Oh, here we go now. Hey, baby. Yeah, I wanna feel the sunshine shining down on me and you. Oh, when you put your arms around me, well, baby, there ain't nothing in this world I can't do. Sometimes